Hey guys, this video is going to be the first part of the vlog, I guess you would call it, or documentary, or on the case modding on the Superflower case. I also decided I'm going to do it as a combination, kind of a modding tutorial. I've gotten a lot of questions from people that ask about modding cases, maybe some tips and helpful things for it. So I think I'm just going to combine the two instead of doing a separate video on each. This case has been sitting here for a few days now. First thing I like to do when I'm looking at a case or thinking about modding a case is put it on the desk and basically just let it sit there for a couple of days. Look at it, get some ideas, kind of think of what I want to do with it, what I'm trying to achieve with it. Maybe start thinking of what kind of colors I want to use on it, kind of get some ideas of what I think needs to be done or needs to be fixed or needs to be changed. Second step is thinking of the things you don't want to do, don't want to wreck. Maybe some of it is in good shape already, or you like the layout, you don't want to change that, so you certainly don't want to mess up something that you do like. This case in particular had some concerns of mine. For one thing was this sliding front cover, that hydraulic front cover in it. As any of you guys know that have done painting and stuff, you get any paint in these slots or anywhere where you have a part that travels, it's going to not work. This door will stick, the hydraulics in it will be worthless, so I definitely got to be careful and figure out how I'm going to paint that without getting too much paint in there and keeping the door from functioning. Another question I get a lot on are side panel windows. You kind of want to get an idea on the inside of the case of how big do you want the window to be, what do you want to show. Like in this case, it has a top section where the power supply is. Maybe a person only wants the window in the lower half and use this area for tucking away wires, wire management. Maybe you don't want to display that at all, so you could make the window just on the lower part. Or maybe you're going to have something here in the front and you don't want that to be seen, maybe all your cables for your hard drives. So you could start the window here going backwards. So you want to get a good layout of how big you want the window, where you want it positioned. And another thing, when you look at your case covers, most of the time your case covers are pretty solid. This is an older case, so it's a pretty heavy gauge metal. It is a very solid cover, but when you start cutting huge holes in them, they can get flimsy really quick. They can bend, they can warp. Next thing you know, you got problems putting them on and taking them off. So you want to be real careful about not getting too close to the edges, not taking too much metal out, so that the side panel itself doesn't become real flimsy and floppy and give you troubles. And besides, you also want to leave room so that you can overlay your plexiglass on the back of it and have something to stick it to. So on this one, if I'm thinking of cutting it out right up to the handle here, and so I will still have this gap here where I could put my double-sided tape and overlay my plexiglass over it and still fill that gap without getting too close to the edges. So you want to make sure that you leave at least a couple inches of metal all the way around it to give you some rigidity in the side panel. And now a couple other things that I need to address on this particular case is, well, for one thing, you know, you got your slots on the front, or on the top and on the bottom, and also on the back, where your side panel is going to hook onto. I have painted these in the past. They do tend to get scratched up. That's kind of a big problem. The cases can be hard, or the covers I should say, can be hard to get on and off if you do paint these. So that's something a person has to think about, whether they want to tape them off and just leave it bare metal, or if you do paint it, you have to go very thin on the paint. You don't want to put 6 layers of paint on it, because you will not get your side panels on and off. On this one, the hard drive setup, it has this removable hard drive cage, which you know, is fine. You can pop it out, change your drives, but there's no cooling. Back when these older cases were made, you know, it had the mount for an 80 millimeter here, it had a mount for an 80 millimeter in the side panel, and then it just had the exhaust fan. To make it somewhat modern and to make it so, you know, maybe I could add a Velociraptor drive or something quicker in the future, I definitely want to get some air flowing on my fans. So I think I'm going to try to find a cage out of an older case, take this out, and try to mount the hard drives right down in here, where I can either add this 80 millimeter fan and blow air on them, or more than likely I'm going to use my side cover fans, which I'll be mounting right along here, and use one of them to blow right onto the hard drives to keep them cool. So you kind of want to think of the layout on it, any metal fabricating you want to do beforehand, before you even think about painting. That way you don't have to worry about scratching anything when you're done. If you got to do some drilling or riveting or whatever you might be doing, you want to do all your metal work first, and then start your sanding, start your priming. And if something still needs to be changed, you can always sand the primer and reprime it again. But once the paint is on there, your clear coat's on there, it messes up the whole paint job if you have to do it over. And when it does come to cutting, like I'll be putting some side fan windows in this case, use the old adage that, you know, measure twice, cut once. It's always easier to go a little bit undersized than oversized. You can always take more metal off if the hole is too small, if you need it a little bigger to fit the fan. But once you go too big, you're done. There's no putting the metal back on. So definitely double check your measurements, double check your fan, make sure everything lines up perfect. If you put a line on there to follow and you're not sure whether you should be inside the line, outside the line, on the line, always go inside of it. That way you'll have a little more metal you could take off. You could take a hand file, hand grinder, Dremel, whatever you have, and enlarge the hole a little bit more for the fan to make sure it fits perfectly. If you cut this huge oblong hole, there's just nothing you're going to do with it. You're going to need a big fan cover. You're going to have to try to cover it, mask it up, you know, whatever, just to make it look decent again. So definitely be careful, double check all your stuff before you even think about cutting. That way you'll be sure that you can get it right the first time and not make any mistakes. So for now, I am just going to start tearing this one down, pull the board out, pull the wires, drives, front bezel, basically start stripping it down to the metal. Then I'm going to fab my hard drive cage, and then I'm going to start drilling the rivets out and start separating the individual pieces so that we can start getting ready to sand and prime and get some paint on it. So anyway, that's it for this segment.